Let's do a demonstration and see how this actually works. So what I want to do is examine inside to outside dynamic NAT so we can see what it looks like when we're surfing the internet from our home computer. We can take a look at what our packet looks like on our local network and compare it to what it looks like on the global network. So here in my drawing, really what I want to accomplish is to allow that inside PC to communicate with my outside web server. Now in the previous module, the way I had this set up was the cloud that I have drawn in here. Well, part of my setup is in that cloud. It's what allows me to connect the internet PC and the outside web server to the outside interface of my firewall and have access to it in my network. And what I did was I set up a route in the cloud so that 10.0.0.0/24 was completely accessible from my version of the public internet here. However, now that we've talked about NAT, we know that that can't actually happen. So we need to set up our NAT rule to allow our inside PC to talk to our outside web server. So that's going to be our goal here, is to get that inside PC to get to that outside web server's website. What I want to do that is I want to use some Wiresharking to take a look at what's happening before we do NAT on the inside PC and the outside web server, and then do some Wiresharking after we configure NAT and see what's happening then. So right now I want to open up my web browser. I'm going to use Google Chrome here, and I'm going to browse to 198.51.100.100. Now that is my external website, the outside web server, and right now that's just not going to load. And it's not going to load because I do not have NAT yet configured. Let me stop this and launch Wireshark and get a capture started with Wireshark here. And in my filter, I'm just going to put the IP address of the outside web server, 198.51.100.100. So we only see that traffic, and then I'm going to pull up my browser again here. We'll take a look at both happening at the same time. So if I refresh, HTTP 198.51.100.100, and I hit enter there, what's happening here is I'm seeing that my workstation, 10.0.0.99, keeps sending SYN messages to the web server, and I'm not getting any replies. Let's jump over to our outside web server and take a look at what's happening over there. Before I do that, I'm going to stop my web browser here from sending traffic, and we're going to move over to my outside web server. Okay, so now I've moved over to my outside web server. I want to launch Wireshark. Launch up Wireshark here, and I'm going to put a filter in here to say that I want to look for IP addresses from 10.0.0.99, which is what I should be receiving on this box, considering NAT has not yet been done. What you can't see me doing right now is refreshing my web browser on my inside PC. So I just hit the refresh key. The whole process kicks into action. I'm going to stop this capture already and just see what happened here. Scroll up right to the top. So we can see the inside PC sending the SYN message to my web server, and the web server sending a SYNAC back. My PC sends another SYN. The web server sends another SYNAC. And this process just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. It's not working, is what's happening here. And the reason it's not working is we're never getting the ACK back from the client. And if you remember on the inside PC side, that message was never getting the SYNAC. So we need to enable NAT to make this work. Let me stop my capture and close this. Actually, we can just leave this running because we're going to do this again in just a minute. We'll get a fresh capture when we do that. I want to move back over now to my inside PC. And I'm going to close all of my windows here. And what I want to do is open up my firewall configuration portal. And we're going to create a NAT rule. I'm using the Cisco ASDM here to configure the 5512 ASA that I have. We'll go into configuration, and I'll click on firewall. And what I want to do is I'm going to create an object. Now, an object in Cisco land or in anywhere in networking and firewalling, really what it usually identifies as some networky thing in your system. So in this case, our network object that I'm creating here is going to be the network for the inside devices. So we'll call it inside hosts. And it's a network, and the IP address of the network, what identifies that network, is 10.0.0.0 with 255.255.255.0 as my mask. Now on the Cisco firewall, I can set NAT up quite easily. I just create it right within the object. It links the NAT process right to the IP addresses that need to get translated. So I add my rule. I select dynamic pat, and then I need to know what the translated address is going to be. Well, I'm going to translate this to the outside IP address of my firewall. The outside IP address of my firewall is 203.0.113.87. So that's what I'm going to translate it to. We're going to hit OK here and apply. What that did was it created a rule under my NAT rules saying allow the inside hosts to talk out to the internet, and when you do that, translate the source address to the outside IP address. Let's test to see if it works. So I'm going to open up Google Chrome and browse to http 198.51.100.100. And there we go. Get my outside web server. Let's take a look at Wireshark and see what's happening in Wireshark here. So my inside PC is on my local side of my network. So when I capture the traffic here that's going to the website, let me put a filter in, ip.addr. And apply that. We'll open up Google Chrome again. I'm going to open up an incognito window here so that I get a very fresh, cache-less session. And we'll browse to the website and capture what's happening. Stop my capture, scroll right up to the top. We have SYN, the SYN message we're sending from my inside workstation to the web server. We have the web server replying with a SYN ACK, and then I'm replying with an ACK, and then I'm sending my GET request, and we can see the whole transaction of the website moving in and out of my PC. Let's go take a look at what's happening now on the web server when I do this same exact thing. And specifically what I want to look at is what are the source and destination IP addresses. Now right now the inside PC, that is on our local side of our network. So let's see what happens when we look at the global side of the network for the same exact transaction. So I just moved over to my outside web server. Let me launch Wireshark. And we'll start capturing on my interface. And I'm going to put a filter in here that's going to capture traffic from both 203.0.113.87 or 10.0.0.99. So we're going to look for traffic from either one of those IP addresses. I'm going to go back over to my inside PC. You're not going to be able to see what I'm doing here, but what I am doing is I'm opening up another Chrome window and I'm browsing to the outside web server. So I just sent my request to go to the outside web server. I'm going to stop my capture here. Scroll up to the top. I got my SYN, SYN-ACK, ACK. But now on the global side of our network, my source IP address, 203.0.113.87, destination 198.51.100.100. There is no sign at all of the 10.0.0.99 IP address. That IP address is no longer reaching my outside web server because I have set up NAT now. In fact, if I just do a search for my 10.0.0.99 address, that no longer exists on my outside web server. So what the firewall is doing is it is creating a NAT entry and it's recording that transaction that's happening between my inside PC and the outside web server.